Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Lossman and this is my final project titled Children's Perception of Polite versus Impolite Statements. My research question is, what do children perceive as polite versus impolite ways of talking and why? This question is based on a scholarly article titled Metalinguistic Knowledge of Pragmatic Rules in School-Aged Children, which was written by L.C. Wilkinson. This is my prior research, and here's the summary of it. So, in this study, the investigators used two methods to assess children's understanding of acceptable social communication. In one of the methods, known as the judgment task, two types of requests were presented to the child. The child then evaluated if the requests were appropriate or inappropriate. If the request was deemed inappropriate, the child was asked for an explanation of the evaluation. 14 6-year-olds, 12 7-year-olds, and 31 8-year-olds were tested individually. There were 26 females and 31 males. The responses and explanations were then classified. In evaluating whether requests were appropriate, the investigators found only one effect involving age to be of significance. That was the interaction between the child's age and the indirectness of the investigator's statement. Also, the investigators observed that a child's understanding of indirect requests increased with age. However, indirectness was more important in older children in their explanation of appropriate versus inappropriate requests. In contrast, the investigators observed that younger children relied more on the presence or absence of the word please in their explanations of whether a request was appropriate or inappropriate. So, my hypothesis is that, based on prior research, the younger children will rely more heavily on the presence or absence of the word please in their explanation of whether a request was polite or impolite. Also, indirectness should become more important in older children in their explanation of what is polite versus impolite. So when I say indirectness, I mean how the statement is directed towards a person. So, for example, a direct request would be like, give me a pencil, whereas an indirect request would be, I don't have a pencil. So the participants were one 11-year-old and one 6-year-old. Both are middle-class American and are from English-speaking only households. Both are female and are the youngest in their respected families. So here are the materials and methods. The participants were interviewed individually and the interaction was audio recorded. The participants were asked to evaluate two different requests or a single request and were asked to judge the statement or statements as a polite statement or an impolite statement. If the statement was judged as impolite, the participants were asked why they categorized the statement as impolite. So here are the questions that I asked them, and I asked them about 18 of them. So some of them are, here are some of them. It says, give me some candy. May I have some candy? Wash the dog. Can you wash the dog? Pass the sugar. Can you pass the sugar, please? Can you show me how to do this? Show me this right now. Give me your crayon. May I have your crayon, please? Make your bed. Please make your bed. Clean your room. Can you clean your room? Do your homework. Can you do your homework, please? Take a picture. Can you take a picture? Go to sleep. You need to sleep. Give me the ball back. Can I have the ball back, please? Who is this? May I ask who's calling? And these next ones, basically it's just one statement, and I asked them if the statement was impolite or polite. So, didn't you bring me a present? I'm out of paint. Give me some of yours. Yeah, I'll set the table. Mrs. Smith, this is Jason. Jason, this is Mrs. Smith. And these last two statements are based on the directness of the request. So there's, show me how to do this homework. I don't understand how to do this homework. Give me your pen. I don't have a pen. So the results from the 11-year-old showed that the 11-year-old subject relied heavily on the presence or absence of please in the requests in deeming them polite versus impolite. An example of this is a recording of the 11-year-old when she is asked which of the two statements, which were, can you pass the sugar please, and pass the sugar were impolite and why? For the third one, the questions are, can you pass the sugar please, and pass the sugar. Which one is the more impolite one?
The second one.
Second one? Okay. And why is that?
Because when they say, can you pass the sugar please, it's using please, and it's has a more polite way, you could say. And then, can you pass the sugar, pass the sugar is kind of just telling you to, not asking.
Okay. And how would you make the second one more polite than the first one? Or more polite, I guess.
It's basically like the second sentence, except you could add please. So, can you please pass the sugar? And yeah,
okay. Okay. Another result is that if please wasn't present in the request, but the request was made in a direct form and in a question form, the 11-year-old subject would categorize the request made in a question form as polite and would categorize the request made in a direct form as impolite. And here is another recording that exemplifies this result. Let me just get to it real quickly. So the first one says, show me how to do this homework, and I don't understand how to do this homework. Which one is the impolite one?
The first one.
The first one? And why is that?
Because show me how to do this homework is not saying please or like the second sentence, I don't understand to do this homework or anything like that.
Okay, and how would you make it more polite?
Can you please show me how to do this homework?
Okay. Okay, and then the results from the 6-year-old participant showed that the 6-year-old relied more on the tone of the statements or the requests. Although she consistently chose the phrase as being polite that contained the word please, she didn't incorporate that meaning in her explanation as to why it was polite. And also she relied more on the experimenter's quality of tone. An example of these results from the 6-year-old is a recording from the interview with this 6-year-old participant. Let me just get to it real quickly. Okay. Next one says, give me your crayon, and may I have your crayon, please?
May I have your crayon, please?
Okay. And why do you think that one's nicer than the give me your crayon?
Because you need to say stuff that's really nice instead of being like, give me your crayon.
So being like nicer and stuff.
Like, you could say like, can I have your crayon after you too?
Okay. Okay. So for the discussion of my experiment, so basically this experiment disproves my hypothesis. There are several reasons that this could have happened. However, I have two main reasons as to why this could have happened. So the first one is that only one subject in each age group was examined. And this significantly limits the data that I could pull results from. So instead of having, from my previous research that I found from Wilkinson, he had 14 6-year-olds, 12 7-year-olds, and 31 8-year-olds. And they're both female and male. Whereas for me, I had 2 participants, both female, and one was they were both from different ages. So if I had more participants, it would have given me a higher result and possibly would have improved my hypothesis a little bit more. And the second main reason is that both participants were interviewed in the comfort of their homes. However, this caused a distraction for the 6-year-old subject, as her sister had a television on in the background. So while I was interviewing her, she kept on turning her head away from me interviewing her and kept on turning her head towards her favorite television show, which was on. So having that sort of distracted her, and basically what she wanted is that she wanted to finish up these questions real quickly so then she could go back to her television show. So in order, if I could do this experiment again, I would have still interviewed the participants in the comfort of their homes, but I would have also probably interviewed them in a room that was quieter and didn't have as much distractions as the one with the 6-year-old. For the 11-year-old subject, it was in a quiet room where there was no distractions, which helped with the experiment and made the experiment go smoothly. But so I would use that instead. I would use a quieter place in the home so then they can be comfortable in their home instead of being in a strange place and in a different room. And this is the format of my previous research, and that is all I have. Thank you so much.